Hi, this is Dave from Maker 9601. Still home in the hills of North Florida, coming to you once again from my studio, from my workshop. I'm not even hardly even leaving the yard to go anywhere except for critical things these days. Trying to stay home and trying to stay well. Well, today we are bringing you the first of a two-part series, an interview with Mara Hittner from a company called MatterHackers. And MatterHackers is a large and robust company that supplies equipment and and materials and supplies and consumables and all that kind of stuff to the 3D printing industry and especially to maker spaces. And in this first part of this two-part series, Mara is going to talk to us a little bit about the kind of stuff that her company does and a little bit about the machines that she recommends for maker spaces at different levels of readiness and different levels of skill and different levels of finance. And then in part two, which I'm working on trying to get out really soon, Mara talks about the work that MatterHackers is doing in coordinating the efforts of maker spaces around the country in producing and distributing personal protective equipment to hospitals and other agencies that are looking for that kind of material right now. So, and then we're also going to talk a little bit about the unique opportunities that are showing up, especially in the area of micro manufacturing and agile manufacturing for people that are interested in 3D printing, who have the skill set to produce 3D printed materials, and how that world might grow in the future. So that'll be in part two. But for now, part one of our two-part series, Mara Hittner from MatterHackers.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Dave, we met at the at NomCon, is that right?
We have.
Yeah.
I've been at the last two of them.
Yeah,
I was traveling during the one before, so I didn't get to go. And I had planned to be at the one in Oregon this year, so
yeah,
unfortunately wasn't able to go to that.
same. Yeah, that was going to be my first one. I love Nation of Makers for anybody that's watching. If you have a maker space, big or small, definitely look up Nation of Makers. There's such a great support for the ecosystem, like you mentioned. But yeah, my name is Mara. I work at MatterHackers. I'm the vice president of strategic um, partnerships. But what MatterHackers does is we're the largest 3D printing retailer and really digital manufacturing retailer. So we started off as the largest online retailer of 3D printers, and we've since added laser cutters, vacuum formers, CNC machines, 3D printing pens, mostly because that was what was being requested by our customers. And our customers are makerspaces and education, but also more and more professionals, everything from architecture firms, aerospace, automotive, medical, really anybody that's doing any sort of product development in any way, shape, or form, which is pretty much everybody now, which is a really great place for us to sit because of the work that we're doing with education and makerspaces. A lot of that is really geared towards workforce development and training people to have these maker skills that are going to make them more valuable employees for people like SpaceX or even Google, Facebook, anyone that's making any sort of hardware.
Or
And
even a local, even in the local ecosystem, there are. I know our space gets calls every week from people who have, a small part. They have an invention they're working on, and they want to have somebody help them make a small part. And of course, we try to talk them into coming and learning how to do it themselves.
hey,
Well, I think it's one of the benefits that it's kind of one of the less known benefits or less recognized benefits of maker spaces is the kind of development of the local ecosystem around micro manufacturing and around the micro entrepreneurship and things like that. So yeah, and I got to say that of all the things we do in our space, and we have many, many different types of workshops and tools and so on, that the 3D printers get the most use, and especially right now, of course, but they get the most use, and there's the most interest. And even, even though they're getting pushed into schools and libraries and colleges and maker spaces and corporations and the military and lots of places, most people still haven't actually put their hands on one. It's still, I think, feel that it's magic when they see, something emerging out of nothing.
Yeah.
That's the
I
very
still
cool
think it's
thing about it.
magic, and I've
Yeah.
had the 3D printer in my bedroom for years. But I think what you're mentioning here is a really good point, in that, through that trajectory with MatterHackers, we now have 3D printers, kits for $250 or $300, all the way up to, really, the same 3D printers that are at SpaceX, or, these professional users that are, call it under $10,000.
Well, let's talk about those products just for a second. And I know that there are people who watch these videos who are working on starting maker spaces, or planning one, or are interested in the technologies and want to do them, in their own houses. But the I would wonder if you could just maybe talk about maybe two products. One, an entry-level product that you might have that would be useful for a small group of people getting together, trying to start a space that is affordable, and that is something that they could use to learn on. And then also talk about a product that you would see as a more production unit. A lot of printers are showing up in public libraries, for example, now, or in innovation labs at universities and places like that. They get used pretty hard. And so maybe you could talk a little bit about two products, that entry-level product, and the one that's the most protected from abuse by ignorant users.
Sure. I'll actually, if you don't mind, I'll talk about kind of three levels of products.
Sure.
The thing with MatterHackers is we sell over 70 different kinds of 3D printers. So really what we do is, people come to us, whether it's professional users or maker spaces, they tell us what it is they're going to be using their 3D printers for. And then we can kind of offer some unbiased recommendations as to which machine, what materials, software, what's going to get you to be successful. I wish I could tell you that there was one machine that was a silver bullet, that was like a microwave, and it's just going to work every single time, and you're never going to have to think about it. I'm sorry that does not exist yet. We're working on it. We're getting closer. What we do have are machines that, once you get them dialed in and you have a little bit of knowledge about the troubleshooting, you can get it to be repeatable and reliable. But, as I compare using a 3D printer, like, or getting a 3D printer with, like, learning to play guitar, right? Like, if you buy a guitar, you're going to have to learn how to tune it. You're going to have to learn how to change the strings. If you start playing a guitar and it sounds weird and the string breaks, you don't bring it back to Guitar Center and say, this technology doesn't work. As far as, you can learn some songs and play them, but if you want to write your own songs, you may have to learn a little bit something else. If you want to get really good at playing it, you're going to have to take some time and really work on it. And I think it's the same with 3D printing. But to answer your question, there's sort of what I would consider the entry level, or the low cost printers, things like Creality, Monoprice. You have to put their, sort of kits that you have to put them together. And they may need some upgrades to really get them to do what you want them to do. And there's pluses and minuses. There's a lot of learning in putting together your own kit and doing some upgrades, and really like getting into literally the nuts and bolts of your 3D printer. They're also super cheap. So if you've got $3,000, you can get 10 printers instead of, paying $3,000 for one printer. We're actually seeing an uptick in using these small, inexpensive 3D printers with distance learning right now, and with teachers and maker spaces that you can't all get together and use the same printer. So these are printers that some organizations can actually afford to buy 20 of them, one for each student, and then MatterHackers will just ship them out to where they need to go.
That's
And
awesome.
then you do your CAD, you do your design, classes online, and then you learn how to put together your 3D printer, and then you've got your printer.
Yeah, that's very cool, and that was actually one of my questions for later. But I'm glad you talked about it, and I know that there are spaces, including ours, that have been very successful with build your own 3D printer classes. And at the end of those workshops, the students had one to take home, and everybody had the same kind. So they all, when one person had a problem with the heated bed, it was something that the whole group could discuss and figure out the solution to together. And it was, yeah, it was pretty awesome. And I hope we do more of those in the future. And it's really heartening to hear that your company is helping support that sort of activity.
Absolutely. And then, so that's kind of like level one, I would say. And then, you're talking about, if you want to talk about like the iPhones of 3D printers, something you'll find in a SpaceX or on an actual manufacturing floor, something like an Ultimaker or Raise 3D or a CraftBot, where it's going to be, somewhere between $3,000 and $5,000 ish, $3,000 and $6,000 ish. They're going to be larger print beds. They are going to have more robust systems where you can print different kinds of materials. I think the most excitement in 3D printing right now is really in the materials, and it's not just plastic. Plastic is great. Everybody should start with PLA. Smells like maple syrup. It's going to make your Yoda heads and your everything you want to make, and even your prototypes for your designs. PLA is awesome. But for final parts, there's things like nylon and carbon fiber composites, nylon and glass fiber. We even have, I had my part on my desk yesterday. I don't see it right now, but we even have a stainless steel.
Wow.
This little kitty ring happens to be made of stainless steel. This was printed on a $1,500 3D printer.
Wow.
And I can talk more about that later if you want. But so those kind of more professional machines that have all of those bells and whistles, those are great when you need those bells and whistles. Like if you really need something it's going to be a little more plug and play. It comes, fully assembled, again, enclosed, larger, can use a lot more materials. But there is a middle ground, and that's why I wanted to talk about 3 levels instead of 2. There's a machine that we sell. It's called the Pulse. And it actually started off as a very small project where we saw a gap MatterHackers saw a gap in the marketplace of being able to kind of make your own printer as far as the bells and whistles you want, but have it delivered to you assembled. And that's really what the Pulse is. It's a printer kit. We sell different configurations of it. But we put it together for you to your specifications, kind of like a Dell computer, right? You like literally check boxes of what you want and what you don't want. And then we send it to you fully assembled. So for like $1,500, you can actually get a 3D printer that's got a decent sized print bed. It's got a hardened steel nozzle, so you can print those composite materials. It's easy to use. The software is easy to use. It's relatively plug and play. Yeah, you're going to have to turn a few knobs here and there. Again, everything needs a little tune-up. But it's a great middle ground for schools and maker spaces that want to have the option of going into to more complex materials, but don't really have the investment or really need to make the investment in a huge enclosed machine.
And I think I saw on your website that for some of the less expensive 3D printers, you do have safety enclosures for them that might be required in a particular level of school or something like that. That's very cool. So moving on just a little bit, you mentioned, people having to upgrade and tweak and so on as they got more interested in it. Could you talk a little bit about the availability of parts, how you guys handle support, whether you are the warranty repair person, or not you personally, but your company is, and or maybe you, maybe a small company for all I know. And I know when I was in business, I had many hats I wore.
Yes.
And also a little bit about, how repair works, and do you sell parts to the DIY world and stuff like that?
Yep, yep. So we do sell parts. If you go to MatterHackers.com, we have all the parts for all the things. We, as much as I'm truly excited about these professional grade machines and these fancy materials and all this kind of stuff, we're all DIYers at heart. And I would love for people to, buy a machine and just Frankenstein it out and, get all the cool upgrades. And really that's how we get to push the limits of 3D printing, are the people that are tinkering and trying and testing and just kind of throwing it out there just to see because it's cool. As far as when you purchase a machine from us, or filament for that matter, it does come with free email, phone and email support. So you can email support@matterhackers.com. It starts a ticket. Someone will either call or email you back and help you out with your problem. If it does turn out to be a warranty issue, most machines come with a 1-year factory warranty. So we can kind of help bridge that gap and make sure that you get your warranty parts. There doesn't seem to be a ton of need right now for people to like send in their machines for repairs. So we don't offer that service. But what we do is we can, help you through the problem either with phone calls, emails, videos.
Awesome.
And make sure that you are successful with your 3D printer.
It's really bad. I think especially for small spaces when they kind of build their marketing world around having their first 3D printer, and a lot of the time it's not working. So my advice is get 3 so that you have 2 extra ones around.
I agree.
So, one of the things that you mentioned was filament, and I know in our space we have both plastic printers and resin printers, but having access to good filaments really, really important. I know from my use of 3D printers, I've occasionally gotten bad filament that must have gotten humid or something on the way, or dried out too much or whatever. Could you talk about the kind of your philosophy on the filament you carry, and what sort of QA you do on it before you decide to accept it or before it goes out the door?
Sure. Well, as you can imagine, MatterHackers, we get pitched a lot more products than we actually end up selling. So we do have a very rigorous testing process that everything goes through. That said, we carry something like 2,000 different SKUs of filament.
Wow.
Yeah. So especially like during the COVID crisis, a lot of people were coming to us for filament because we carry filament that's made in China, that's made in Europe, that's made in America, that's made here in California, that's made in Portland. So we do sell a lot of different kinds of filament and resins. You mentioned, resin printers. We do also sell some SLA and DLP printers, and we have the resins for those. But the filament, there's everything from our, $19 build series PLA up to this Ultrafuse by BASF that I had mentioned. That's actually a combination of, it's a composite of stainless steel and POM, which is a plastic. And so you can actually print it like any other filament, and then most people don't have the debinding and sintering process available in their shop. So you actually wrap it up and send it away to a debinding and sintering house that then burns out the plastic and sinters the metal so that you come back with an actual full metal part. Major chemical companies like BASF and Dow and DSM are seeing that 3D printers are no longer little toys for the garage, but they actually have a lot of utility. So they're investing in making filament that kind of mimics the materials that they normally use in injection molding. So more flexible materials, more robust plastics. You can see this assembly here. This is actually stainless steel. It was 3D printed in Pulse, and it's an assembly. So it's a number of parts that were put together. Got the gears there that actually work.
That's very cool.
This is it's great because you can have a metal. It brings down the cost and it makes metal printing extraordinarily accessible. And it also, I mean, it's metal, so you can machine it afterwards. You can, really start to combine the capabilities of your space and really start showing how additive manufacturing and traditional manufacturing can combine to make a really great part.
Well, thank you, Mara, for that really interesting interview. I enjoyed the conversation so much. And remember, that's just part one of a two-part interview. In part two, Mara and I discussed the response of makerspaces and of the 3D printing community to the COVID-19 pandemic, and specifically the work that MatterHackers is doing in helping coordinate that effort. So a really interesting conversation. I hope you tune back in. We're also going to talk a little bit about some kind of new opportunities that have shown up in the world of micro manufacturing. Not manufacturing tiny things, but small manufacturing efforts. So it's an interesting conversation. I hope you tune back in. If you want to be notified, there's a subscribe button somewhere in the doohickey down below there. And if you click that, you'll get a notification of somehow, some way that I have a new video up, and they don't happen very often, so try not to be too annoying. Want to say that this was not a sponsored interview, and the next one's not a sponsored interview. I didn't receive anything in return for doing this interview with Mara, with the exception of having a really nice time and interesting discussion and learning some new stuff. So I appreciate it. I do, however, want to take this opportunity to remind you that there's a freaking global pandemic happening, and please take precautions. Wash your hands. I know that not everybody believes in wearing masks. I know that some people think it's stupid, but you know what? Even if there's a tiny, teensy possibility that masks help, that masks may help protect your family, your loved ones, your children, your elders, your neighbors, your friends, your community, and your world, then why not wear one? I mean, if you need one, let me know. I'll try to hook you up. In the meantime, listen, you all take care of yourself, and remember, there is one virus that we ought to be spreading right now, and that virus is kindness. So thank you. Have a great day. Ciao.